The night she looked me straight in the eyes and said, "You don't leave until I say you can," I thought my life was about to get a lot worse. I had walked into that house feeling small, ashamed, and completely defeated. I expected anger. I expected yelling. Maybe even the door slammed in my face. What I didn't expect was kindness. But sometimes the moments that scare us the most are the same moments that change our lives forever. Before we begin, if you enjoy heartfelt stories about real life, second chances, and the power of kindness, make sure you subscribe to your channel name, like this video, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support helps us keep sharing stories that remind the world how powerful kindness can be. Now let me tell you what happened that night. 3 years ago, my life was falling apart faster than I could keep up. I was 32, recently divorced, and barely holding on to a job that I hated but desperately needed. Bills stacked up on my kitchen table like silent judges reminding me how badly I had messed things up. Most nights I stayed late at work just to avoid going home to the quiet apartment that echoed with memories of the life I used to have. That's how I ended up doing a late-night delivery one cold Thursday evening. The address was in a quiet neighborhood just outside town. The kind of place where houses had big front porches and warm yellow lights glowing in the windows. It looked peaceful. Too peaceful for someone like me. When I knocked on the door, I expected the usual quick exchange. Hand over the package. Get a signature. Leave. Instead, the door swung open and a woman stood there studying me like she already knew my story. She looked to be in her late 30s, maybe early 40s. Blonde hair, relaxed smile, and the kind of calm confidence that made you feel like nothing surprised her anymore. She glanced at the package in my hands, then looked me up and down. Not in a rude way. More like she was reading something invisible written all over me. "You look exhausted," she said. I forced a polite smile. "Long day." She didn't move to take the package. Instead she leaned against the doorframe and said something that completely caught me off guard. "You don't leave until I say you can." For a second I thought I had misheard her. "Excuse me?" I said. She nodded toward the driveway where my delivery van was parked. "I've seen that same van drive past my house 3 times tonight," she said gently. And every time the driver looked more miserable than the last. My face burned with embarrassment. I tried to laugh it off. "Just a busy night," I said, holding out the package again. But she still didn't take it. Instead she stepped aside and opened the door wider. "Come inside for a minute." I hesitated. Everything in me said this was weird. But something in her voice didn't feel threatening. It felt concerned. And honestly, I was too tired to argue. So I stepped inside. Her house smelled like fresh coffee and something sweet baking in the oven. The living room was warm and cozy. Soft lights. Books on shelves. A big couch with a blanket tossed over the arm. It looked like the kind of place where people felt safe. "Sit," she said, pointing to a chair at the kitchen counter. I sat awkwardly while she poured coffee into a mug and slid it across to me. "I'm Claire," she said. I told her my name. Then she leaned against the counter and folded her arms. "All right," she said. "What's going on?" I blinked. "What do you mean?" She gave me a knowing smile. People don't carry that much weight in their eyes unless something's wrong. For a moment I considered lying. Saying everything was fine. But something about the quiet kitchen, the warmth, the way she waited patiently, made the truth slip out before I could stop it. "I lost everything this year," I said quietly. And once I started talking, I couldn't stop. I told her about the divorce. About the apartment that felt like a storage unit for broken memories. About the job I hated but couldn't quit because I was drowning in debt. I even told her about the panic attacks that started hitting me late at night when the world got quiet. Claire didn't interrupt. She just listened. Really listened. When I finally ran out of words, the room went quiet. I stared down at the coffee cup, embarrassed by how much I had just spilled to a complete stranger. But when I looked up, Claire was smiling softly. "You know what I see?" she said. I shook my head. "I see someone who's still standing." I frowned. "That doesn't feel like much." She shook her head. "It's everything." Then she said something that stuck with me. "Most people think strength means having it all together," she said. "But real strength is showing up even when your life feels like it's falling apart." I sat there in silence, letting her words sink in. She finally took the package from the counter and set it aside. "You know why I stopped you tonight?" she asked. I shook my head. "Because 5 years ago, someone did the same thing for me." Her voice softened. She told me about the year her husband died unexpectedly. About the loneliness that followed. About the night she almost drove away from everything because the grief felt too heavy to carry. But before she left town, a gas station clerk noticed she looked upset. He told her to sit down. Bought her a coffee. And listened. "That man probably forgot the conversation the next day," Claire said. "But it saved me." She looked me in the eyes. "So now when I see someone who looks like they're drowning, I try to do the same thing." My throat tightened. Because no one had looked at me that way in a long time. Like I mattered. We talked for another 30 minutes. About small steps. About how life sometimes rebuilds itself slowly, piece by piece. Before I left, Claire handed me a small paper bag. Inside were 2 warm chocolate chip cookies. "For the road," she said. I laughed for the first time in weeks. As I walked back to my van, something strange happened. The night didn't feel as heavy anymore. My problems weren't magically solved. But they didn't feel quite as impossible. Over the next year, my life slowly changed. I found a better job. Started running in the mornings to clear my head. Even began volunteering at a local food bank on weekends. But the biggest change was this. I started paying attention to people the way Claire had paid attention to me. The tired cashier. The quiet coworker. The neighbor who always looked lonely. Sometimes all it took was a conversation. Sometimes just a smile. And every time, I remembered that night in the warm kitchen with a stranger who refused to let me leave. About 6 months later, I drove back to Claire's house. I knocked on the door holding a small box of cookies. When she opened the door, she smiled like she had been expecting me. "You look better," she said. I laughed. "Thanks to you." She waved that off. "No," she said. "Thanks to kindness." And she was right. Because kindness doesn't always look big or dramatic. Sometimes it's just a cup of coffee. A listening ear. Or someone saying, "You don't leave until I say you can." A small moment that reminds someone they're not alone. So if you take anything from this story today, let it be this. You never know what someone else is carrying. The person standing in front of you might be fighting battles you can't see. And the smallest act of kindness might be the very thing that helps them keep going. So be the person who notices. Be the person who listens. Be the person who shows kindness when the world feels cold. Because sometimes, one moment of compassion can change a life. Maybe even save one. And who knows? The life you change next might be closer than you think.